Okay, picture this. You're digging around a Stone Age site and you find a microchip. I mean, that sounds completely impossible, right? A piece of technology so advanced, it feels like it would totally rewrite everything we know about human history. Well, let's dive right into one of the most baffling archaeological puzzles of the 20th century. So that's really the central question here. I mean, could we be looking at actual evidence of some forgotten, high-tech civilization, or maybe even debris from an ancient alien visit? Because honestly, the objects at the heart of this whole mystery really seem to suggest something that wild. All right, so here's the scene. It's the early 1990s. You've got these gold prospectors working the rivers deep in Russia's remote Ural mountains. But here's the thing. Alongside all the gold dust, they start finding thousands of these perfect, tiny, almost manufactured-looking metal coils. They weren't even looking for them, but these strange little things just kept turning up again and again. And listen, when I say tiny, I really mean it. Get this, the smallest of these coils are just 0.003 of a millimeter wide. That is way thinner than a human hair. Just think about the scale of these things for a second. That level of miniaturization, it just immediately tells you this isn't some random natural mineral formation. No way, this was made. And here's the real kicker. The prospectors found these things very deep, I mean deep, in layers of river gravel that have been dated to the Pleistocene epoch. You know, the Ice Age. We're talking layers that are up to 300,000 years old. So let's just put that together. You have what looks like modern nanotechnology sitting in Stone Age dirt. How is that even possible? So whenever you're faced with a puzzle this weird, a few classic theories always pop up. Let's just call them the usual suspects in the world of, historical anomalies. Yeah, these coils, they fall smack into a category people call OOPArts, which stands for out-of-place artifacts. And the idea is pretty simple, really. It's an object that shows up in a time or a place where it just has no business being. You know, the kind of thing that forces us to question everything we thought we knew about the past. So right away, two main theories really took hold. The first one is this forbidden archaeology idea, basically that a super advanced human civilization existed hundreds of thousands of years ago, got totally wiped out, and left behind only these tiny little traces. Then there's the second theory. What if these are literally pieces of a UFO that crashed on Earth way back during the Ice Age? And this quote, I think it really captures the mindset, For the people who believe these theories, these little coils aren't some mistake or modern contamination. Oh no. To them, this is the smoking gun. This is the proof that our official version of history is just wrong. But hey, as investigators, we've got to look at the hard evidence itself. All right. So let's start our own investigation. And the first, most important clue has to be the material itself. I mean, what are these so-called impossible objects actually made of? It's time for a little forensic metallurgy. So the analysis comes back, and it reveals copper in the bigger pieces, which, okay, that's not too shocking. But, and this is a big but, the tiniest, most intricate spirals, they were made of molybdenum and tungsten. Now, just take a look at those melting points. Tungsten needs over 3,400 degrees Celsius just to melt. That is an insanely high temperature. And right there, that is a major, major problem for any kind of ancient origin theory. Think about it. The most advanced furnace from the ancient world couldn't even get halfway to the temperature you'd need to melt tungsten. It's not just that it would be difficult. It's pretty much thermodynamically impossible with prehistoric tech. I mean, in fact, just look at what it takes to make a tungsten wire this fine today. It's this incredibly complex multi-stage industrial process. You need advanced chemistry, you need vacuum furnaces, high-pressure machinery, industrial diamonds. This isn't some blacksmith's workshop we're talking about. It's a full-blown 20th century factory. And there is absolutely zero evidence for any of that kind of infrastructure back in the Ice Age. Okay, so the material, the what, is clearly modern. But what about the where? Right? The whole mystery hinges on them being found in 300,000-year-old dirt. To figure that part out, we have to go back and investigate the crime scene itself. And honestly, this is the key question that breaks the whole case wide open. We all just kind of assume that if you find something buried really deep, it must be really old. But what if that's just a flawed assumption? Especially when you're talking about a specific environment, like a river. So it all comes down to one simple thing: density. Just look at this comparison. River gravel, rocks and sand, it's relatively light. But tungsten? Tungsten is incredibly dense. It has a specific gravity of over 19,
which, by the way, is almost identical to gold. And in the turbulent, churning water of a river, gravity just takes over. The heaviest stuff always sinks the fastest and the deepest.
And bam, that explains everything. A tiny, modern piece of tungsten that falls into that river is going to behave exactly like a fleck of gold dust. Over time, it's just going to slowly work its way down through all that light gravel, eventually settling in the exact same deep, ancient layers where all the heavy gold accumulates. The takeaway here is huge. In a river, depth does not equal age.
Okay, so we've established that the coils are made of modern materials, and we now know how they could have ended up in ancient dirt, but that still leaves one big question. Where did they come from in the first place? All right, it's time to get to the smoking gun.
Let me introduce you to the Plesetsk Cosmodrome. Now, during the Cold War, this was one of the most secretive and busiest spaceports on the entire planet. And, this is the crucial part, its rockets, the ones carrying military and spy satellites, flew on a launch path that went directly over the exact same Ural mountain rivers where these coils were found. And we're not just talking about 1 or 2 launches here. For decades, from the late 50s all the way through the 90s, we're talking thousands of launches taking off from Plesetsk. And every single time a rocket jettisoned a booster stage or a launch went wrong, debris would just rain down over this precise region. It was like a constant shower of high-tech scrap metal for almost 40 years. So what exactly was inside those Soviet rockets? Well, Soviet engineers, they loved using these rugged, old-school vacuum tubes, mostly because they could survive the electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear blast. And what was at the functional heart of these vacuum tubes? You probably guessed it, microscopic coils made of tungsten and molybdenum, the exact same materials found in the Urals. And here it is, the actual smoking gun, the original Russian scientific report from the 90s. It solved the mystery right then and there. But you have to look at the specific wording they used, technogenic cosmic nature. Now, to a Russian space scientist, technogenic cosmic just means man-made space debris. But somehow, alternative history writers mistranslated cosmic to mean alien, completely ignored the part about the Plesetsk rocket route, and just like that, an entire myth was born.
So once you correct that simple mistranslation, the entire puzzle just snaps perfectly into place. Let's put the myth and the reality side by side, just to make it crystal clear.
Okay, so the material? It's not some advanced prehistoric nanotech. It's standard 20th century Soviet aerospace alloy. The dating? Not 300,000 years old. It's just a geological illusion caused by simple physics. The location? It's not the site of some ancient civilization, it's a Soviet rocket drop zone. And the documentation? It doesn't confirm an alien origin. It actually confirms the debris came from rockets. Case closed. But you know, this whole story leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. We are constantly shedding the skin of our own technology. Think about microplastics, tiny satellite components, bits of electronics. As all these little fragments sink into the ground and become part of the geological record, you have to wonder, what baffling, out-of-place artifacts are we creating right now for the archaeologists of the distant future?